Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs, it is 2-4 Tuesday. Old school content today, psychology of prospecting. This is content that I covered several hundred times over and over on a breathe, release, and let go day here. Breathe, release, and let go on 2-4 Tuesday. It is December 16th, 2025. And the psychology of prospecting is the content for today. I used to have a CD set like this called The Psychology of Prospecting. It is now The Psychology of Closing. That is what I have left from my collection. I sold around easily 20,000 of those units back in the day, and I don't have any of them left. I sold out, and I've bought a few over the years off eBay myself, so I have a few in my collection. So prospecting is a skill. Sales is the highest paid profession in the world. And if you own a network marketing business, a direct sales business, you're in insurance, real estate, you're a coach, a influencer, affluencer, and you are selling services, benefits, and features, then sales is a skill that you learn to master. And if you don't master selling, then what you end up mastering is procrastinating and avoiding. And it is an epidemic that affects most of the planet. As you become more proficient and better equipped to let go of your anxiety, fear, and doubt about selling, then you move into a level of being a professional. If you're not a professional at selling, then what you will be is an amateur. And amateurs talk, professionals close. And the more skilled you become at the psychology of closing, Ashley, good to see you this afternoon. The more proficient you become at the psychology of closing and the psychology of selling, the higher the degree of your professionalism and the higher degree of you'll be able to, in an average ratio, you'll be able to close sales. If you sell cars, you are gauged by your ability to close. So if you're selling cars on a lot, you have a quota to meet, and usually it's around somewhere between 15 or 20 units a month to be able to make the quota. That's in traditional direct sales. That's a job type sales. That's a commissioned sales job. There's no base. You're selling on premise, and you don't typically have to provide your own leads. So that's a premise sale. People walk on the premise, they drive, they come in from the advertising. And as a sales professional, you have a cubicle and you meet people on the sales room floor and you walk out on the lot with them and you are learning how to sell. And you're learning how to read the buyer. You read their eye irises. You understand where they are. Are they a qualified buyer? So the same situation is applicable when it comes to real estate, any level of direct sales, insurance, network marketing. Network marketing teaches some of the most unique sales skills. Yes, that's it, Michael, back in the day. Network marketing goes to great lengths to seduce you into believing that you're not selling, you are sharing. Well, I, on the other hand, have for years taught that if you don't know how to sell, then what you're doing is talking. And sales, once again, is the highest paid profession in the world. Now, Michael Claney just said that he has the series, The Psychology of Prospecting. You might actually have it too, Ashley, back in the day. So the Psychology of Prospecting was my first sales CD that I produced in 1998. And that originally was my first sales cassette was called Power Prospecting and Sortings for Professionals. I then turned that into The Psychology of Prospecting in 1999. This came out in 2005. The Psychology of Closing, and at the time, it was my signature product. 3 years later, I produced this gem, The Psychology of Asking. Now, this is old school, back in the day. And I used to routinely sell a few thousand of those a year back in the day. I remember I did a team call for a large real estate group one night, and that was a $197 product, $197. For that 10 CD set, I had 81 purchases on that call that night. You do the math. 200 times 81, well, that's correct. That's $16,000 in this sales on a half-hour conference call back in the day. And I had thousands of them in my inventory in my home with the team, and then we had a bulk mailing machine called Pitney Bowes, and we delivered them to the office. So to become effective at selling, you must understand that prospecting is a skill. So when you are communicating with people and you are selling, that's what your purpose is, you're selling. Or recruiting, you're either selling the products, benefits, features, or you're selling the dream. If you're seeking people to join a team to build a culture, or you're seeking people to buy a product, service, benefit, or feature, it's the same situation, because what it is, you're asking a series of questions to qualify the buyer to see if they qualify for your time. I have a client named Susie, who is a top-tier sales professional of real estate in Kauai, Hawaii. Jeff Cregan is a top-tier sales professional of real estate in South Beach, Miami. Rick Stout sells real estate in the Tampa area. And I have a multitude of other, and Zach Pazanza sells in South Florida as well. And I've coached many real estate sales professionals, along with multiple insurance professionals. So when you're selling homes, it's a bigger ticket item. So if you're selling a $250,000 home versus a $2.5 million home, many people would think, well, it'd be easier to sell a $250,000 home. Not necessarily, because what you're looking for in both cases is a qualified buyer. And so if you're selling a home, you're selling the dream. And if you're selling financial products, you're selling the dream, which is financial freedom. If you are selling network marketing, direct sales, you're selling the dream, that people can buy the products, services, benefits, and features. But overall, you are selling the dream. And Rachel, thank you for your referral this morning. And I spoke to one of your teammates and had a great conversation with her. And I qualified her and had a great, and she was an absolute qualified buyer, and she definitely has bought into the dream. She wants to live the good life. She wants to be able to live on her terms, her time frame. She has left a corporate career that paid little to nothing, even though she is a very skilled licensed professional, and she is now following the lead of 3 other women in her culture who are living the dream. And anyone can do this, but very few people ever cross the bridge because they never master the skills of selling. Selling is a one-on-one proposition between you and a customer, between you and a prospect, between you and a soul having a human experience. And it's your responsibility to determine, is this a qualified buyer? Is this someone I want on my team? Is this someone that I feel will buy the products consistently? Is this someone who understands the product, service, benefit, and feature? Is this someone who has the credit, the money, or the resources to purchase what I am selling? This is all part of the equation that you establish through fact-finding, rapport building, and small talk. And I used to do this type of training 7 days a week, 2 or 3 times a day. And then I transitioned my career. I haven't taught sales skills like I am doing now. I used to do this 7 days a week. For the first 12, 15 years of my career, that was a major component of what I taught. I still teach the psychology of closing and selling, but not like I did back in the day. And that was my calling early in my career. I then transitioned to addictions, higher consciousness, letting go, free enterprise skills, powers of attraction, meditation, and other ways to be able to assist yourself to let go of the trauma, drama, and chaos that the mind-body connection creates of fight or flight, which keeps you in an overwhelmed state of consciousness, recreating the payoff. And salespeople are notorious for avoiding selling because of the anxiety about being rejected and abandoned, looking foolish, making mistakes, saying the wrong thing, getting in trouble, getting and being and saying overwhelmed. Salespeople are chronic avoiders, and they typically quit before they start. So you'll have teammates who they have so much anxiety about the outcome. They have so much anxiety about making a mistake, getting in trouble, saying the wrong thing, embarrassing themselves, and not wanting to offend someone that they will spend their early career or all of their career getting ready to get ready and procrastinating. So just that's right. Demetrius said, if you don't know how to sell, you're just yapping. That was one of my old quotes from back in the day. So in selling, what you're learning to do is lead a prospect through a series of questions to see if they qualify for your time. I recently spoke to someone who told me they were going to hire me, but. So that's the contradiction. I'm going to, but. So once you get to but, now everything has changed. I'm going to, but. So when you enter the but, when you enter the but zone, it's your responsibility to find out where they really are. So most recently, this person said to me, I'm going to hire you, but I want to talk to my significant other. And I said, when are you going to talk to them? And so they weren't definitive until I asked the question. And they said they could do it tonight. And I said, when will you get back to me? And they gave me several days. I then turned around and asked them if they could get back to me later tonight. So I'm asking for the commitment. If I leave it in the hands of the prospect, there's a high probability that that prospect will never get back to me. When you encounter someone saying, well, yeah, let me think about it, or let me check my finances, what you're encountering is called an objection. It's a reason not to commit. It's not necessarily a reason not to buy, although that can show up, but it's a reason not to commit. And if you're speaking to someone who's commitment phobic, you're going to encounter people who are going to give you a delayed answer and a delayed commitment. And it's your responsibility to understand that most of those people are lying to you and they're not going to follow through. I factor that around 1% of the population that says they're going to get back to you actually does. And your law of averages is enhanced if you're skilled at asking the questions. When will you get back to me? And then you take it out of their hands when they say, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Then you would turn that around and say, what's a good time for me to call you? Because once you take it out of their hands and move into your own posture, then you can find out if this is a qualified buyer or not. And if it's not a qualified buyer, you are wasting your time. I had a client yesterday that told me they wanted to hire me and they would get back to me in the next day or so. I asked them if they could get back to me that last night, and they did because I asked for it. If you don't ask, typically you won't receive. That means you have to let go of your anxiety about being aggressive, being direct, being too needy, any of these situations, and you have to be clear with the way you communicate and the way you ask. Your objective is not to be direct, your objective is to be relaxed. So you're able to ask questions in a sequence, in a relaxed body. So you can establish whether you have a suspect, which is someone who's not going to buy, or a prospect that gives you a high probability that they will purchase your product, service, benefit, and feature. And when you live in your own clarity, you are condensing the time space down to anywhere between 1 day, 24 hours, or 48 hours. But when you leave it unopened, an open loop, where you're not asking the closing questions or not asking the questions about commitment, then you leave it completely out in the ether, and seldom does that person get back to you. When you have posture and you're anchoring the situation by asking the questions, you're in command of the conversation. You're not trying to control it, but you're in the process of the flow of it. You're dictating and directing the flow of this conversation. When you're overwhelmed, when you're anxious, when you're worried, you're telegraphing your own scarcity consciousness. You're telegraphing how uncomfortable you are. You're telegraphing that you're not a professional, and then this even continues to enhance the law of averages of the person buying. This is why it's so important that you become a professional. You're a professional salesperson. You're a professional closer. You're a professional asker, and you're learning to ask the questions in a sequence in a relaxed body. When you become more and more skilled at this process through repetition and experience, then you are letting go of your anxiety, your fear, and doubt. And as you become proficient at this vocation, you will start to have a much higher closing ratio. People have asked me many times, what's my closing ratio? Well, it's in context, it's not like 50%, and it depends on also who I'm talking to, but I have a relatively high closing ratio commensurate with the profession itself. So it's somewhere around maybe 10%, depending on the lead pool that I'm also speaking to. If I speak at a live event and there's thousands of people and a few people buy, but it still has big numbers, or if I once spoke at 16 people in Honolulu, Hawaii, and 8 of them bought. That would be 50%. 8 of them bought coaching. I once spoke with Myron Golden. Those of you know Myron's a 8-figure annual income earner. I was Myron's coach in 1991, and I did multiple events with Myron in the 2000s. One time, Myron and I had an event in Orlando. We had an extenuating circumstance. There was only 4 people in the audience, and I closed 3 of them. One time at an event in Orlando for a travel company, the United States Marshal and the Attorney General came into the room at 8 o'clock in the morning and shut the event down for not having a proper permit. And there were 4 speakers there, and it was like 250 people there. It was mind-blowing. Then we were getting shut down by the state of Florida. I went to one of the leaders of that team and told him that I'm going to stick around that day, and if he could find a room or an umbrella at the hotel and he had a team, I'd do an hour training for him. So I spoke for 40 of his teammates outside in Orlando in August in 90-degree plus heat, and I did 45 minutes and I closed 3 sales, which was $9,000, which is a big difference between zero. Because if I would have just gone home like the other speakers, I went in and stayed through the day and asked. I asked if he could put his team together. I will speak for him. He was very impressed that I was willing to do that, edified me. And then I also called someone that I knew in Orlando and let him know I was speaking, and he was one of those 3 people that bought. And then he referred me another person later in that journey. I mean, once again, this is what you do when you're a professional. You become resourceful. You have repetition and experience. You have preparation, execution. So these are an example of some leads of mine that I have right here. So these are coaching leads. These are people who bought from me. Okay, so this is dated 7/18/15. And this is an event that I did in New Jersey, and I did an event in Long Island, and every phone number is here of everyone that bought from me in this time frame. And then then I have this in a sequence. So that's June, that's May, this goes back. So there's 75 names right there. Now I have every person who's ever hired me, just like this, written down with this, a black cross ink pen on a yellow legal pad. I have every person who's ever hired me sequentially by the date and with their phone number beside their name printed in ink. And so those are leads I call. I've been calling them since August. I've closed 14 leads of former coaching clients. And this is in between coaching. And so I'm a one-call close. That's my model. And so my model on a 20-minute coaching session is I speak to you, I find out where you are, I find out what I can assist you with, I assist you with the problem, I provide the solution, then I ask for the commitment. Now you can do the same situation, although your presentation would be different. So if you're in a network marketing or direct sales business, you would speak to a prospect, you would send them a video or a link or whatever it is you do, but it's usually I would use an 11-minute, a 10, 11, 12-minute, never anything more than a 15-minute presentation by my company. If I'm an insurance agent, I'd be sitting down and doing a presentation over Zoom with them or going to their house. If I had to, a real estate agent, I'm gonna qualify the buyer on the telephone, and I'm gonna do what is called a hard qualify. I'm gonna make sure the person is actually a qualified buyer. And when you're selling real estate, you ask the person what their credit score is. If you don't ask the person what the credit, you're not being nosy or you're not prying their fares, you're being a professional. Because you can't sell a house to someone who doesn't qualify for it. So it's a legitimate question to find out what's your credit score, and do you have a lender that you're already working with? Because if not, then that's more time. And when you're selling real estate, you want to sell right immediately to the most qualified buyer. Ideally, a cash offer with no inspection. That's if someone really wants that property or that property is in demand. I mean, cash offer or over asking price, that would be ideal in a market that has a lot of prosperity in it in the real estate arena. And that would be what you would ask for. So asking is a key skill when it comes to the psychology of prospecting. Prospecting is an absolute gift, and it's a skill, and you become good at it. It pays you dividends. And it's asking-oriented marketing, and you're qualifying the buyer through a series of questions, through fact-finding, rapport building, and small talk questions, leading up to the presentation. Then you're asking more questions to find out how qualified they are. And then you ask for the commitment. You come to the end point and you ask the buyer, do you see the value? Are you in a position to purchase today? Along with what you witnessed, do you feel comfortable in purchasing? I mean, you ask the closing questions. And TC, trial close, you trial close throughout the conversation by the questions you ask. You're asking questions to qualify the buyer, to see if they are the right fit for your product, service, benefit, and feature, your business opportunity, the house you're selling, the financial insurance policies you're selling, your own personal coaching and branding. I mean, it's all the same situation. The common denominators are you're talking to people. The common denominators is you're qualifying them to see if your product, services, benefits, and features can resolve a problem for them. You're also selling the dream, the good life. When you're selling a home, you're absolutely selling the dream. Location, 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 other amenities, oceanfront, lakefront. I mean, there's many, many variables. At the foot of the mountains, in the mountains, access to mountain roads. I mean, these are situations that people are going to ask you, and it's going to be your responsibility to respond to the stimulus to become a professional. Now, when it comes to the follow-up, I do not remotely believe the fortune's in the follow-up. It's completely overrated and overblown. The fortune is in the close. So you can follow up with someone, but if they're not open or ready to receive, you're just wasting your time. And what many amateurs do, they spend way too much time with people who aren't going to buy than the people are going to buy. That's a key skill to remember. So you follow up with people who merit the follow-up, and other people, you let them go. You let people go in a relaxed body, and you let them go in higher consciousness. My name is Jeffery Combs, president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. You have an outstanding afternoon today.